Welcome, everyone, to Fantasy Top 5. Here we are.
Who's ready?
Who's ready? It's Monday night. It's Monday night.
2 amazing games tonight.
And our podcast.
And our podcast.
Which is the main event.
Yeah,
well, it's actually before, so I guess we wouldn't be the main event because that'd be at the end. We could have our own pretend event afterwards. But either way, Monday night is here. Football has been here for a few days, and it's been good.
It's been an exciting few days. Every single game I don't know if I'm just overly excited about football being back. Every game I watched was awesome.
There were some good games. And it was different. There was some weird outcomes, some crazy outcomes, some talent,
some big time fantasy letdowns, and some exciting people who you don't expect to do good, doing great.
That's very true.
Ogletree.
There were quite a few. And we'll talk about those on here, which is really good. So for anybody who maybe didn't pay attention or had something going on or just want to get some reminders, some news, we have a lot of stuff. We actually we spent some time on our podcast as well, coming up with a really nice an outline and we have some nice segments. We gave them some crazy names. Yeah. We're really excited.
And now that we're cutting it down to a pretty basic, solid hour each time, we can't really let ourselves ramble as much. So we're trying to cut off some of the fat here.
That is true. The game started at 5 o'clock, and that's why we're here so early. But it should be really good. I'm excited. This is it. Those were all preseason ones before. They don't even count. I mean, you can listen to them, but the whole time you're listening to them, just keep thinking, it's a good thing these don't count. And then when you listen to this one, then hopefully we do really good. I think we will.
Yeah.
We're already off to a blazing start.
Yeah, because after a shaky preseason, we are planning on going 16-0. We're doing a perfect season this year.
Perfect season, 16-0. We're not going to lose a single podcast game.
Yeah, we're actually going to go ahead and start by doing a couple of patting ourselves on the back for a couple people we said we're going to do solid in week 1 and then through the rest of the season. I'm going to go ahead and start with the obvious pick I made, which is Jimmy Graham. So far, unless something happens tonight, he's the #1 tight end in the game, fantasy-wise. And then Aaron Hernandez was actually second. And Gronk, like I said, is kind of falling down. After 1 week, he's third, which is still good.
Not bad.
But his teammate, Aaron Hernandez, is 2. So
that's true.
All I'm saying is Brady is obviously favoring Hernandez because they were like 0.2 points apart, and it's a pretty big difference. Also, we got a little Blaine Gabbert action, who ended the week as a top 10 fantasy quarterback, and Jay Cutler. And like I also said, I got Brandon Marshall and Julio Jones, which are a little bit more of obvious picks. But if anyone tries to say that they picked Blaine Gabbert to be a good start in week 1, I think they're lying.
I really think you're the only one. I think a lot of people were really down on him.
I don't know if you've seen him since he's cut his hair, but wow. He was doing damage to himself with that long hair because he has got a sharp look to him with his hair short. It's a handsome man right there.
Looks good.
Tom Brady, watch out. Uggs is looking for Blaine Gabbert. All right, well, Eric, who did you pick that worked out well for you?
I'm very pleased with my picks. And I actually went through and kind of looked at our first podcast just to make sure that I really did put stuff on here, and I did. Peyton Manning, I think everyone was fairly low on him. Not low, but they didn't think he was going to be top 5. I put him in my top 5 on my hot or not, which proves that and he had an incredible game and looked just like he always did.
Peyton Manning.
He looked like Peyton Manning. And so I was very happy. I picked him up in both leagues. I think people even gave me crap because I picked him up, I think, in the 4th round in one league. And I thought I got a steal. Another one I had was Jacob Tamme, who goes right along with that. He was good 2 years ago when he played with Peyton Manning for the few games that he did end up playing. And I just thought that Peyton would be looking for him a lot. And I don't think a lot of people picked him up, at least not very early, maybe.
Yeah, not very many I knew about picked him up. He had a solid game.
I had him in both leagues. And then I really have to brag about Kevin Smith because he had an incredible game, even though it hurt. That final that final touchdown at the very end that put the dagger in the Rams was painful, but at the same time, it was joyful. And that's why fantasy football sucks, my friends. Don't play the game. I'm out.
Yeah. Peace. We're done.
We're done. We're done. That play right there made me realize that I can never be a fan of a team if I'm going to play fantasy.
Well, the rule of thumb that I've always went by is you want your fantasy team to win, but you want your team to win more. Like you want, if it comes down to the Rams stopping him there and you losing that week, I feel like you would have rather had him stop him there because you can make up ground in fantasy, but the Rams, they only get so many chances to win games.
I know, that's very true. So, yeah, so I felt like, yeah, we did want to brag a little bit here and just talk about how we've already starting off to a strong start. And we'll forget about the ones that we did bad, which I can't think of any, honestly, so I've already forgotten about them.
And even if I could, I wouldn't mention them. That's not how this works.
Every week we mention what we did right, and we pretend like the ones that we did wrong didn't happen.
And if you want to mention people we did bad, go ahead and Twitter us. I'm at FTF Sean on Twitter.
I am at FTF Eric, and our actual Twitter is at Fantasy Top 5. Any of those three work, so just tweet them in.
Yeah, and if you're wanting to not just criticize us, if you're wanting to get in on some of that fantasy knowledge that we obviously have, if you heard some of those picks we just made, Twitter at us asking us for help, and we'll be helping you. That's what we're here for, so get on it.
It's very true. That's why we do a live show. We also have a live podcast as well on Justin TV, justin.tv/fantasy top 5. We have a website, www.fantasytop5, where we'll actually be posting a lot more things as well. Because we're going to go over all our stuff tonight, but then there's still 2 games tonight. So all those will get updated. We're going to do waiver wire picks and a bunch of stuff like that on the show today. And some may get taken out or added. And that's why we do. And we'll probably put a little bit more information on the website as well. So, should we get started?
Yeah, let's just jump in.
So we're going to start out with breaking news. My number 1 breaking news is Peyton Manning. I know we already talked about him, but I plan on talking about him a lot because he's really good.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah, he had an incredible game. Completely tore apart the Steelers. Which a lot of people, that was another thing a lot of people thought too, is they're like, oh yeah, Peyton Manning, he may be good, but not this game. Not against the Steelers. They're going to be out for him still.
Yeah, and I don't want to take anything away from Peyton Manning, but I think a lot of people maybe noticed last year when Tebow did it, and I think they're noticing more now. Like Peyton Manning had a great game. He had basically as close to a perfect game as you could get after having as much time off as he had. But I think the Steelers' defense, I think the age is finally catching up with them. You saw it out there. And they did have some injuries and stuff like that, but I just don't think they're the defense that they used to be.
I agree. And Peyton Manning is still the Peyton Manning he used to be. So
Yeah.
Number 2, I have here is breaking news, actually. The Rams do pretty okay.
Yeah.
They do pretty okay. I probably shouldn't put it in here. That's more of a homer thing. But still, they do pretty good. They still lost. Like I said, Kevin Smith gets the touchdown at the very, very end.
It really took some effort on their part to lose. Some real effort there.
It's so frustrating because they really looked a lot better. But I have high hopes for them.
But they're a young team. Their defense just got put together. And that defense, I don't care what anyone says, the Lions are a high-powered offense, and they did well against them. I watched most of the game, and they did not okay. They did well. They didn't do great. They didn't go out there and go 49ers on them, but they did great.
And yeah, they did some. And there are quite a few teams that picked up some corners mainly in the off season that I think are really going to show up. And that's one right there. The Rams defense. Kind of keep an eye on them because Cortland Finnegan is the man.
Pick 6.
Yeah, they had so many
big interceptions.
Matthew Stafford looked awful.
Yeah, and that's Matt Stafford's game, but he throws interceptions because he goes big all the time, but usually he ends up coming back and still getting like 25 points in fantasy. And I don't remember the exact number, but they held him to below 20 in that game.
He still did pretty good, and the Lions did pull out a win at the end, so they can't be too sad, but at the same time, The Rams do pretty good. Number 3, Adrian Peterson comes back and with a vengeance, doing all sorts of crazy stuff that every time I kept thinking, oh my gosh.
And that's one of the things that I have to admit. Every person that asked me about Adrian Peterson this week, I'm like, you're a fool if you start Adrian Peterson.
My wife didn't play him. She was very angry.
9 months off of what used to be career-ending knee injury, and that he just comes back and he's leaping over people and going crazy. Like, Adrian Peterson is not human. Like, I'm convinced that he is from another world. That dude is insane. And if you've watched him in the past, I shouldn't have been surprised because he insane. Like, he always has been. He drags 3 and 4 guys oftentimes to the end zone. So that's my bad for not thinking Adrian Peterson would do well.
Start him going forward.
Always.
Always. No matter what.
If he's in a wheelchair, start him. That's his game. He just plays no matter what.
If there's anything we've learned, it is you always start him.
Yep.
No matter what. Number 4, RG3, who also absolutely had an incredible game, which I think some people might have been a little... Nobody's expecting that. I don't think anyone was surprised, but no one was expecting that. I think he went 7 of 7 just to start out the game and just absolutely destroyed the Saints.
And he made Garcon look like Garcon hasn't looked since Peyton Manning played with Garcon. So, yeah, he's a real live quarterback, RG3 is. Like, a lot of people were like, I don't know, it's just a preseason, he's a rookie, I think he'll struggle, and he didn't. And the Saints defense isn't the old Saints defense, but they're not a terrible defense. So it was pretty impressive to watch him play on Sunday.
It really was. And number 5, I wrote down a bunch of injuries. We won't go into it a whole lot because, like I said, we got to get through this. We got 45 minutes. So Jake Locker and Nate Washington both get injured on the Titans. Keep an eye on that. Fred Jackson, you want to keep an eye on.
He's out 4 weeks, it looks like.
Fred Jackson?
Yeah, 4 weeks.
So C.J. Spiller filled in well, which was surprising.
Yeah,
CJ's
really well.
Never really been that kind of guy, but keep an eye on him. John Skelton, that looked pretty bad. And from what I read, he had looked like he could be out for a while. Cobb filled in pretty well.
Yeah.
Rashad Jennings might be out, which isn't really a big thing anyway.
It doesn't matter now that MJD's
MJD's
back.
in. And Pierre Garcon looked injured, but you said he is coming back as well. And
oh, yeah, and another
really
bragging
good,
thing that we did. We were both high on MJD still, and he came back, and after the lockout, he was still great. So, well done, MJD.
That's true.
All right, and then I'm gonna go ahead and start with doing the top 5 surprises I saw over the first week of games so far, and number 1 on my list was the New York Jets offense. Like both me and Eric, I feel like we're down on them. They bring in Tebow, you don't know what they're gonna do, and then Mark Sanchez goes out there, has 3 touchdowns. Sean Green runs for 94 yards and a touchdown. Stephen Hill had 2 touchdowns, and Jeremy Curley had 1 return touchdown and 1 receiving touchdown. And then, yeah, they looked insane.
Yeah, I did not expect them to look like that at all. They had Santonio Holmes, and besides that, neither. Who is it? Stephen Hill?
Yeah,
and
Stephen
Jeremy
Hill.
Curley, which Curley had a little bit last year, but
He's that kid's an insane athlete.
Crazy that they did that. Was not expecting it at all.
Yep. And then number 2 on my list, I have the Dallas defense. And in the offseason, like Eric said about the Rams, a lot of people made some offseason additions on defense, especially at the corner positions. And the Dallas defense did that, and it paid off. They added Brandon Carr and Morris Claiborne, and they went out against the Super Bowl champs, the Giants, and they basically shut them down. They held Eli to 213 passing yards, and they let their offense get 82 rushing yards. So nothing really great from the Giants when they played Dallas. And that's a surprise, I think, to everyone.
That's one right there that I think we can both say that we definitely did not.
Yeah, if you watched Dallas defense last year, it was ridiculous.
And I know we weren't going to mention the things that we picked wrong, but that could maybe have been one of them, maybe.
Yeah, possibly.
We don't really remember, but it could have been.
Yeah, well, if you listen to the podcast before this one, all 3, me, Lane, and Eric, all chose the Giants to win that game. So we obviously didn't have a lot of.
And we've been down on the Cowboys pretty much every preseason.
Well, that's the thing is
podcast.
everyone that was hurt played. Witten played through a injury that could have really got out of hand if he would have got any worse. Dez played, and Dez actually looked good, and he played the whole game. And Austin Miles, insane. Like, jumped up over 2 defenders to grab the ball and then took it around them for the touchdown. So they looked good. And Romo, I've never been down on Romo. I think Romo's always played well, and he did well in that game. All right, and then to my number 3 surprise is Kevin Kolb, who came in after Skelton got injured, and he led the Cardinals to victory. He went 6 of 8 passing for 66 yards and 1 touchdown.
That was crazy.
Yeah, and
because he came in and just started immediately going to Fitzgerald, which you should do.
And which
Any
he didn't do
quarterback should
last
do.
year. That was his main problem last year. Is he's like, I have the best receiver in the game out here, and I'm not going to go to him because Kurt Warner went to him almost all the time. And what did that guy ever do? What did he ever do?
So he went to him twice, and then as soon as it seemed like everyone was like, oh my gosh, he's going to go to him every time, started opening up the field for everyone else, started going to everybody else, and before I knew it, touchdown. There it was.
And one quick note on this, I'm not a hater, but I still would not say jump on the Kevin Kolb bandwagon just yet. Like, I still haven't seen enough to say that you should go pick him up off the waiver wire or anything like that. But he did look good for that one drive, and they did win the Seahawks. So that's that. And then my 4th surprise of the week was the Redskins' Alfred Morris, who had 96 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. And this is another thing that I wouldn't say is necessarily something that's going to be consistent. I think they're going to be more of a passing offense. But I think the Redskins didn't plan on getting up on the Saints like they did. So they ended up just running. And if you had Roy Halou, go ahead and drop him now, I guess. Because it looks like Alfred Morris is the guy there. And Shanahan is known for his craziness, his Shanahanigans. So I don't know if you should ever have faith in any running back from the Redskins, but Alfred Morris looked good yesterday, I guess, not last week. So yesterday.
And I would say pick him up, but yeah, don't play him.
Yeah.
And we'll go over pickups later, but.
And that's the thing is you always want to have him there if they do go against a bad running defense, or you know for a fact that he's going to play him. Like if you were standing next to Shanahan and he says, hey, I'm going to play him, then maybe you can have faith in playing him.
But even then, he probably might not.
Yeah. And then we already kind of went over this, but my number 5 surprise is Adrian Peterson. Sorry, I just paused there for a second because I was reading something on our chat there. All right, but I'm going to jump back to what I was saying. Adrian Peterson was a surprise with 84 yards, 2 touchdowns, coming off of his knee injury. And, yeah, he looked great, but we already kind of went over that. So we have one sorry, never mind.
You said disappointments?
Yeah, I'm jumping around. All right, so we're going to go to our top 5 disappointments. And the number 1 disappointment I have is Victor Cruz, who did have 6 receptions and got 58 yards, but he also dropped a few balls, and he just didn't look Victor Cruz-ish there. Because 6 receptions, 58 yards, that's less than 10 yards a reception, which isn't bad if you're Hakeem Nicks, who's the guy who goes across the middle and catches the ball in coverage. But Victor Cruz is supposed to be their big play guy, and he didn't have any big plays in that game.
He kept dropping everything.
Yeah, and dropping the ball killed their offense because a couple of the times it was.
They would have been big plays. A few of those were 20, 30 yarders.
Yeah.
And nothing.
And Victor Cruz can't be doing that. But my number 2 disappointment was Russell Wilson, who he is a rookie, so you can't expect that much. But I kind of was thinking this first week he would do a little better than he did going against the Cardinals defense. They're not a bad defense, but they're not great. And he only went 18 for 34 passing and 153 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. And the big thing that everyone talks about is his ability to run and how he'll he'll get you some fantasy points there. And he only ran for 20 yards in that game as well. So he was a bit of a
he didn't really
disappointment.
look that good.
Yeah, he didn't
I
look
don't know
that
what it
great at
was.
all. So, number 3,
This is a big one.
I have, and this one I'm actually gonna do this. That is me applauding Chris Johnson for managing to get the money he got last year from the Titans to be the worst running back I think I have ever seen. Like, ridiculous.
Maybe that was his whole plan from the beginning. I'm going to do really, 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 really good. And then once I get that money, I'm not doing anything.
Yeah.
But he still has to play to get the money. So he's playing. But just
Well, I
not
don't know
very
if
well.
he's playing. Like, I don't know if you can call it even playing.
He's out there.
Yeah, he is out there.
He's on a field.
And I don't know if you've ever heard an interview with the guy, but he's out there in more ways than one. Like, he's an interesting cat. But he had 4 yards on one. No, that's not one carry. That's 11 carries. 11 carries, and he gets 4 yards. Amazing. But he did catch 6 passes for 47 yards. So he got 51 yards total on the
So
17
crazy.
times he had the ball in his hands. So CJ 2K, I don't see it anymore. Maybe
No.
CJ 1K if he's lucky, but that dude is blowing my mind. Like, everyone had him high. I even had him high, and he just played like crap against New England, who isn't known for having a great defense.
I think a
Like-
lot of people were expecting at least some type of bounce back, but that was the opposite of that.
Yeah, it's Will Fork chased him down from behind, like ridiculous.
I heard that.
Yeah, all right, but number 4 is the supposed top 10 quarterback. And I say supposed top 10 quarterback because we have Matt Stafford, Tom Brady, Cam Newton, and Michael Vick, who were not, 3 of those were not in the top 10, and Michael Vick was barely in. He was number 10 on the top 10 fantasy quarterbacks of the week, and he may not even be on the top 10 after tonight, depending on what happens in the 2 games. So it's just all the people that picked them really high should have been picking Blaine Gabbert, Mark Sanchez, or Jay Cutler, because all 3 of those guys were in the top 10.
Just so crazy.
Yeah. The big ones, Matt Stafford and Tom Brady, are kind of a gimme. Like, I don't know. Cam Newton, everyone was kind of wondering if he would have a sophomore slump at all. And it looks like he may, but I wouldn't count him. I wouldn't count any of those guys out just yet. But for at least week 1, they were a pretty big disappointment. And then number 5 on my disappointments list, I have Cedric Benson, who he was playing against San Francisco's defense, but he ran the ball 9 times and only got 18 yards. So, I don't know. All the people that thought Green Bay was going to have a running game because they got Cedric Benson, I don't know if I'd be so sure about that just yet.
Yeah, I don't know if I would either. He's never been great. So he's always had that potential, almost like he was going to be, but just never quite happened. So move on to our second segment, which I named top 5 pickups, put downs, and watchovers. So we'll go through all 5 of those. I really like the name. I like pickups because that kind of makes sense. You like pick something up, so you're picking up a player.
Mm-hmm.
Put downs I really liked because it could mean the same thing. You pick something up, you put it back down. It could also mean like putting someone down verbally, which you probably will on all these players because you're probably putting them down because you are yelling at the TV because you're so mad at them. Or it could mean like a dead animal. You have an animal and you've got to put him down. You have a horse with the leg. You got to put him down. You have a... And that's the thing is it's really bad. It's only been week 1, so some of these put downs may be a little early. It'd be kind of like if your dog started to get a cold and you just killed it. So you maybe hold off on a few of these. It's only week 1, week 2 or 3. You know that you can kill the dog at that point. And watchovers, which are going to pick these people you watch over. Maybe not pick them up quite yet, but they're kind of watch over them. Keep your eye on them. So we'll go through the pickups really quick. We have Alfred Morris, which we talked about earlier. He's 28% owned on the Redskins. Looks like he's going to be the main guy. Pick him up. Dallas defense, like we talked about, they picked up those 2 corners, and they're just shutting down. Well, at least they shut down the Giants. But they're both really good. So I think they spent a lot of time upgrading their defense, which I would definitely pick them up if you need one. Blaine Gabbert, like Sean talked about, and apparently nobody listened because he's only 4% owned. Which I don't know why nobody listened to you.
Yeah, well,
We have lots of people listening to the podcast.
well, to be fair, the Blaine Gabbert thing does have a little bit of reasoning behind it. With they have MJD, so I feel like they're still going to be a running team. I don't think Blaine Gabbert's ever going to be like a top 10 quarterback even on a consistent basis. Like he was this week, but I don't think on a consistent basis.
Mm-hmm.
The things I'm seeing out of him though is he's not getting, like he's not doing stupid decisions. He's not throwing interceptions. He's not forcing passes. Like he's checking down. When he does run, he's running and trying not to get hit, and he's making decent decision making. And they do have a couple of weapons now. With Blackman's going to evolve into something special, I think.
I do too.
They have Laurent Robinson, and I don't know.
A really good game.
And then MJD can catch it out of the backfield too. So I think that that he's going to be solid, but I still wouldn't say drop Tom Brady and pick him up, or drop
No.
Drew Brees or anything like that. But definitely a solid pickup for a bye week or something.
And that's the thing with these pickups as well. It's only been week 1. Pick them up. I don't even know if I'd play any of them next week, unless you absolutely need to. I would say pick up a lot of them and just kind of put them on your bench. So, number 4 is Stephen Ridley, who I feel like is mostly owned. He's 80% owned at this point. If he's not, use a waiver wire pick on him. Use your waiver wire. I think he's going to be really good. It seems like they actually do want to run the ball in New England, which is crazy, which I'm kind of surprised about. Never thought I would say that. And number 5, Jacob Tamme is 81% owned. These last 2 are pretty high, but I think he will be a solid tight end and could finish in the top 5 in my opinion. So put downs. Peyton Hillis, 88% owned.
And yeah, he was
had an awful year last year and had an awful game.
After a solid preseason, I thought he looked pretty okay in preseason, but
I think they just have way too many running backs in Kansas City. There's just
a
lot of stuff going on there.
Yeah.
Dexter McCluster, along with all the other guys.
Well, McCluster, they're mainly using McCluster as a wide receiver.
Yeah.
I honestly, I'm just trying to take the credit, put credit where credit's due, and I think Hillis, I'm a big supporter, but you need to step your game up. Like really, like he needs to do something. After last year, like he was on the Madden cover, so he had the Madden curse. So we'll just blank that season. But I don't want to see Peyton Hillis doing nothing for the rest of the season. Like he's a powerful dude. I want to see him back to 2 years ago when he was knocking people on their asses.
That's the thing. He's really good, but yeah, last year I dropped him.
Yeah, you had
traded
to.
him or something, and then so now this year I would say same thing. I did it last year. I'd do it again. That's what I say. Number 2, D'Angelo Williams. He's 84% owned. Maybe not quite. Yeah, drop him. I don't know. He had an awful year last year. Another one that got a huge paycheck and decided he needed to take some time off.
And it's mainly with D'Angelo. I think it's mainly inconsistent. He did
That's
have
the
a
other
couple
thing
of good
too.
games.
I was actually going to say that is that he will have a few good games here and there, but then he has some awful ones that just there's nothing you can do. You're just going to lose that week.
Yep.
Tim Tebow is 15% owned, which I honestly thought Tim Tebow would be higher than that. I'm kind of a little surprised that
It actually makes me happy
15% owned.
that the fantasy world is smart enough to realize that Tim Tebow is a liability. He's not a talent. Like, put him in at tight end. Put him in at running back. Take the QB away from his description. He's not a quarterback.
And that's the thing, and he's not going to be. And this game was kind of obvious with the fact that he was in there. Even right in the beginning, they threw him in, which was really
they
crazy.
put him in on all kinds of stuff, trying to just use him.
But he never threw the ball. I'm not even sure if he really ran the ball. It was mainly just handoffs. And I don't know if that's what they're planning on doing. But either way, no matter what they plan on really doing with him, he's not a legitimate starter in fantasy. And I don't think he will be this year. And I don't think he will be as long as he's on the Jets. So you can go ahead and drop him. David Wilson, the backup to the Giants, Ahmad Bradshaw. A lot of people thought that maybe he'd be doing something good. Maybe he would come out and be kind of the backup that Jacobs was last year. But it doesn't seem like he's going to be. He immediately came out and fumbled
Yeah,
and cried.
which
was
Coughlin
sad.
will not play you if you fumble.
No, that is definitely true. Coughlin is a scary guy, and
For a 100-year-old. He's a scary guy for a guy who looks like Voldemort. Like he literally looks like he could die at any moment.
he is terrifying though. Even on the field, I'm like, ooh, stop showing him. But yeah, he got a negative points. One of the few to get negative points, and I wouldn't. Ahmad Bradshaw looked awesome, and so.
And if he stays healthy, he is awesome.
And number 5, Cedric Benson, 76% owned, pretty high up there. Just didn't really look that good. I don't know. He's number 5 on my list. I wouldn't say immediately drop him.
Yeah, that's
but
one
he
I'd give
didn't-
another week maybe.
He didn't look like I said with all these. We're a week in. Some of them I'd put down Tim Tebow in a heartbeat. You give me a gun, give me some kind of lethal. No, I'm getting kind of
Whoa, dark.
violent here.
Dark.
But and we'll go with the watchovers. We'll go through these really quick. I just added this because I thought it'd be a really good idea. Randy Moss. Maybe this one's more of a pickup. 66% owned. He did look really good. It looks like him and Alex Smith might have some type of connection there. He scored a touchdown and had a really good week. Definitely watch over him. Maybe pick him up if you want to. You can go ahead and do it. You can pick up any of these. Martellus Bennett, New York Giants tight end, 25% owned. They need a tight end. Eli's got to throw to some tight end, and it looks like he's the guy to do it, so definitely keep an eye on him. Jeremy Curley or Hill, either one of the Jets wide receivers. One of those two is going to do something. Curley also returns punts as well.
And I love a guy like that.
And he's good at it.
Because then you all of a sudden get this 6-point boost.
Antonio
randomly.
Brown yesterday, so awesome returning punts. Because all of a sudden you get points. It's amazing. So I definitely keep an eye on him. Maybe pick him up. Cecil Shorts has an awesome name.
It does.
Jacksonville wide receiver is 0% owned. Like you said, they do have a few guys there in Jacksonville. It's kind of hard to say. Laurent Robinson, they do have their guys, so it's not like you need to pick him up, but he's 0% owned. Keep an eye on him. And also Mercedes Lewis as well, Jacksonville tight end. Same thing.
Which people are always
looked
high
really
on,
good.
and he never comes through. And then
Yeah.
yesterday he wasn't like outstanding. He wasn't Gronk or Jimmy Graham, but they would throw him the ball and he would catch it and he would get a few extra yards. And
That's
that's more than you could
awesome.
say the last few years. Like I think Jacksonville is tired of being looked at like they're a terrible team. And I really do think if they can keep a consistent, even Gabbert throwing 200 yards a game and 1 or 2 touchdowns with MJD doing well, I really think I'm not going to jump to a conclusion saying they're going to be in the playoffs, but I think that they could easily be a 8-win team.
Yeah, they were really fun to watch. I'm actually really high on them now, which I was not earlier this year. So, yeah, that's the pickups, put downs, and watchovers.
Solid. And then let's see what we got. I'm going to do the top. I'm just going to kind of run through the top 5 fantasy performers for each position really quick. And when you listen to these lists, you're actually probably going to be pretty surprised. I know I was on a few of them.
That's why I kind of like this, is because most people are like, oh yeah, top 5 fantasy, that's easy. But no, sometimes there's a few surprises, some hidden gems in there you might not have noticed until Sean here told you about it.
Yep.
You'll be happy that you listened.
And I'm gonna start with quarterback. We had Matt Ryan, who threw 3 touchdowns and ran 1 in, and basically a perfect game. And he got 32.46 fantasy points for you, which is really great. And then Robert Griffin III had a really solid game. He had 25 points. Number 3, we have Tony Romo. And then
Yeah, all 3 of those I would not expect.
Yeah, especially your top 3. And then number 4 is a guy you've probably heard a few more times, which is Aaron Rodgers, who had a pretty decent game, but he didn't look like Aaron Rodgers. It was kind of weird to
It
see
was
San
weird.
Francisco figure out the Green Bay Packers like they did. Like it was crazy. But then we also have Drew Brees as number 5. All those guys are solid, over 20-point guys. I wouldn't be surprised to see all of them here again after watching them this first week.
God, Romo though, number 3.
Yeah, and Romo,
I was
people
down.
are always
we
down
were
on
both
Romo.
Down on Romo. I wasn't until last year, and then also just all the problems they've had at the beginning. But that's preseason.
Yep.
That's-
And here's the running backs for you. We're gonna do the top 5 running backs by fantasy points, and the first one's a big surprise to me, which is C.J. Spiller, who had 169 rushing yards, which is just insane. Get you 24 fantasy points. Alfred Morris had, like I said before, 96 yards, 2 touchdowns for 21 points. Stephen Ridley had 21 points. Kevin
Yeah, he was
Smith
good.
had 21 points.
There it is.
And then
Sorry, that was
No, it's
awful.
all right. And then
There it is.
and then AP had 20 points. And like I said, every single person on there is someone I wouldn't expect to be in the top 5.
Yeah.
Like AP at like week 4, I would assume to be in top 5, but not first week of the season coming off the injury he had. So all of those blew my mind.
Just great. I like this segment because I
Yeah.
would have expected them to all be very big names and
Yeah, like Arian
typical-
Foster, like well, I guess McFadden's still to play. Ryan Matthews isn't playing this week because he's hurt. So there's a couple guys that are out. Ray Rice.
hasn't played yet.
I mean, I'm actually super interested to see what the law firm does there in Cincinnati.
Cincinnati.
I'm excited to see that.
But this is cool too because this is like facts. You know, a lot of what we talk about is opinions, and I think that a lot of fantasy football is opinions. But this is like actual facts that you can come look at and or listen to. And
Yeah, and this is another thing that we're gonna update each week on the website. We're gonna put this up so you can go and check, and then I will update it if anything changes with the Monday night game. Like if Run DMC gets 40 points, which I'm planning on him doing, then I'll put him up as number 1. We're going to move on to wide receivers next. And the number 1 wide receiver, Kevin Ogletree, which, I mean, not a lot of people expected that, to get 2 touchdowns and 114 yards.
I
But
didn't put him in my last segment at all.
yeah,
He should be in there.
yeah.
throw him
Well, that's the
in.
thing too is, I think you're smart. I'm going to go ahead and back you up since you're my partner here. I think you're smart because I think Kevin Ogletree he had a great game, but I think he had a great game because he played more of the preseason with Romo. I think I think Miles Austin and Miles Austin and Des Bryant and then Witten are going to take away a lot of his production. But I do think he can play that Laurent Robinson
Laurent
role.
Robinson role. That's exactly
Which
what I was
isn't a
gonna
bad
say,
role
who
to
did
be
good
in.
last year and got some money, got signed. But yeah, put him in the watchovers. Watch over him. Keep an eye on him.
And then number 2 was Julio Jones, which isn't a big surprise, but he did great. 2 touchdowns there.
Yeah, he did.
Stephen Hill, who was a huge surprise to me for the Jets, getting 2 touchdowns. And then number 4, we have Lance Moore, who also did. I expected to do good, but I didn't
Yeah,
expect
not
him to
that
do
good.
that good. And then for the 5th position, we actually have a tie, which is kind of an interesting
Oh.
tie because we have Brandon Marshall, who I was super high on,
Yeah.
and we have Andre Johnson, who
Who
I've already
I
gotten a
was-
lot of grief on because I was really low on. Eric was really high on him. I've gotten a lot
had
of
him
the
top
grief
5.
from him. But the thing is here's my point. I wasn't low on Andre Johnson because I don't think Andre Johnson's a great talent. I was low on him because I don't know if he can stay healthy. So if he's top 10 overall after like 8 weeks and he's still healthy, then I'll be happy to say, yeah, I'm a dumbass. I was wrong. But for right now, it's just week 1, so we'll see where he goes. But that's solid game. It's good to see the Texans come out and basically pick up where they left off last year.
Yeah, it is.
And then we're going to move to tight ends next. And like I said, Jimmy Graham was number 1. Aaron Hernandez was number 2. Rob Gronkowski, 3. Tony Gonzalez, 4. And then, like we said, a big surprise here, Mercedes Lewis, number 5. And then I kind of just mentioned Mercedes Lewis a little bit more than the other ones because he's the only one that was a surprise. Those other guys, tight end is has been pretty consistent with where people have been. But the one thing I noticed about tight end this year is usually last year there was a couple guys at the top each week that had like 20-plus points, and it was a lot more even this time, which I thought was kind of interesting. And then kickers, I'll just kind of run through really quick. We got Billy Cundiff, the hit it when it doesn't matter guy, who's now a Washington Redskin, who had 18 points to take the number 1 position.
I did not realize, but yeah, with how good RG3 did, that's really not horribly surprising.
Yeah. And then tied for number 2, we have Blair Walsh and Matt Bryant, who both got 17 points. And then
same thing with Atlanta and Matt Ryan.
Yep.
Like, not surprising.
And then Minnesota can't finish a whole lot, so not a surprise there either. And then David Akers is our number 4 guy with 16
so awesome.
Points. Yeah, he's great.
That
Hit a 63-yarder.
That bounced off of the goalpost.
Yeah, that was sick. That was a good game, though.
That was so awesome.
Yeah, and then we have Shane Graham and Greg Zorlin, who are tied.
Rams.
Which Greg Zorlin, Rams guy, top 5. What?
Which I was actually really depressed when they got rid of Josh Brown, because I really liked him. And then they pick up this guy, and they're really high on him. He's a rookie. And I see why they were so high on him. He had an awesome preseason and killed it this game. So
yeah, and then I'm gonna go over the top 5 defenses now. We have the New York Jets as the number 1 defense with 19 points, tied with Cleveland of all teams for 19 points.
That.
But Michael Vick threw 4 interceptions, so it's not a big surprise. And then New England was number 3, which surprised me.
Yeah, that is surprising.
But Tennessee managed to screw up in every way you possibly can. Houston's number 4, which isn't a big surprise. And then tied for number 5, we got Chicago. No surprise there. And Philadelphia, which I think a lot of people are high on those guys as well. And they're not a fluky defense. They looked good. They looked really good.
Yeah, they did. It was against the Browns, but...
Yeah, and even the soldiers bringing out the flag were against the Browns. They covered up Whedon with the flag and got trapped under there for a good 30 seconds. I didn't know if he was going to make it out. I'll be honest with you.
I didn't put that in my news. That was hilarious.
Yeah, that was so
and then
ridiculous.
After that, he just had an awful
At
game.
his rookie debut, I feel bad for that dude. He's already debuting on the Browns, and then he's like, gets trapped under the flag. Hell.
It's crazy. Okay, we'll move on to our next segment here. I don't know why I decided yesterday to come up with all these ridiculous names, and I think I'm just going to trash all of them because they're. This is our starter sit, and I think I may just go with starter sit on this one. I decided to come up with playums or stayums, which that's awful. I'm going to go starter sit. So starts for the week. Number 1. I tried to go with a few of these here that, maybe didn't quite have. But Cam Newton didn't have the best game. Coming out the gate, kind of looked a little bit off. But next week, he's playing New Orleans Saints, who RG3 just absolutely went crazy on. And I think is going to have a really good chance to have a comeback game. I think he'll be able to run on him a little bit. And I think he's going to do a lot of good stuff. So anyone who played Cam Newton and was kind of depressed, he still ended up not doing awful, but wasn't quite the Cam Newton that we all expected.
Yeah. Which a lot of people, like really I said, were wondering if he would have a sophomore slump of
And I don't think
kind.
he will. I still don't think he will. I think he had one bad game, which, the Buccaneers just looked really good. So number 2, Jay Cutler. They're playing Green Bay, which I know everyone thinks that Green Bay has this amazing, incredible defense, but I just am not seeing it this year. Anybody who watched that game, I think, would also agree. And so I think Jay Cutler and my number 3, Brandon Marshall, I think will tear up Green Bay and do kind of the same stuff that Alex Smith did yesterday, who looked really good. Tom Brady, I think, will have a bounce-back game as well. He another one that didn't do awful, but we looked through the top 5 list because Sean just showed him to us.
And he wasn't there.
And he was not there. They're playing Arizona, who doesn't really have the worst defense in the league, but I think we'll see a lot of. I think Wes Welker as well, who also was quite the disappointment. I think will also be in
He'll
there.
have
We'll
his good
lump them
games.
two together.
Yeah.
And number 5, Larry Fitzgerald, which you did put New England as one of the top 5 defenses, which I was kind of surprised about. But I think Kevin Cobb will look for him again. I think they will force Kevin Cobb to look for him again. And I think New England is definitely not the best defense against the pass. So I think you can definitely play Larry Fitzgerald and feel confident about it. The sits next week, I'm going to go first number 1 with Russell Wilson. Didn't look that good against Arizona. And next week he is playing the Cowboys, which we saw them completely shut down Eli Manning and the Super Bowl winner Giants. So if you played Russell Wilson, I think most people probably had him on their bench. But if you did play him, do not play him next week. Matt Stafford, who is kind of depressing because we both were really, really high on Matt Stafford
I'm
and the
still
Lions.
high on him.
Threw 4 interceptions, and next week is playing the San Francisco 49ers.
But not next week. I'm not high on him next week, but I'm still high on him.
Who we saw
overall.
shut down Aaron Rodgers almost completely.
And Aaron Rodgers was frustrated.
He was. You could see in his face that he was just not happy. They didn't look good. And 49ers have a legit defense. And if the Rams made Matt Stafford look that frustrated, I think the 49ers, who just did it to Aaron Rodgers, will also. So if you have any other quarterback, I would say definitely sit him on your bench. Ryan Fitzpatrick, a few of these at the end here are, if they still have a few bad weeks, are going to go into my, what did I call it? Drops?
Your stay
Put downs?
Or put
Put them down?
Yeah.
So these ones at the end, the first 2 don't. Keep Russell Wilson, keep Matt Stafford for a little while. But Ryan Fitzpatrick looked absolutely awful against the Jets. The Jets' defense definitely looked really good, but he just kept throwing interception after interception. Had a really good start last year. I was really stoked about him, and then just ended the season awful and already is off to an awful start. I like the beard. I like the guy. But definitely sit him. And like I said, if he has another 2 weeks, I think most people can safely drop him. But we'll kind of keep an eye on him. Chris Johnson, I think, is quite the obvious. Do not play him. It may look like you want to play him. You may put him in the slot for a little while and be like, I like the way that looks. But before those games start, take him out.
Yeah.
Put him down on your bench. Don't quite cut him yet. I don't think we want to put him down quite yet, but I think, man, it's so depressing to say. And number 5, I went with Beanie Wells. I think Arizona, I think they have a lot of running backs. I think they have a lot that they can look at. And I don't think that Beanie Wells is going to be the elite running back starter there. I think the same thing. I think sit him on your bench, don't play him, and maybe in a week or 2, I'd say you could probably maybe even get rid of him. None of the running backs really look that good. So I wouldn't pick up any of them. But Beanie Wells is the one that I think was supposed to come out the gate and be a really good starter, and he's just not. So.
All right, awesome. And I think now for our last few minutes of podcast, we're going to just kind of look over a couple questions we got and a couple comments we have. Basically, right now is the idea is we're going to go over our top 5 comments and questions and kind of try to answer those for people. And while we were talking about how well RG3 did and a couple other things there, we got a comment on our Justin TV page from Kurtog that says, the Redskins in general surprised me. And I can see that. A lot of people were surprised because they didn't just look like RG3.
Yeah, the whole team. And
Like-
there was just this energy about the whole team that just looked incredible.
And their defense didn't surprise me because last year I think they had a pretty good defense. They won a few people last year that you didn't expect them to win. And yeah, they've just been solid. And I think they're going to stay solid. And it's one of those things it's like with the Bears and the Lions and the Packers. They're in a really tough division. So even if they do great, they still might not make the playoffs because that's a four teams that could possibly be in the playoffs in that one division.
Which is kind of depressing. But overall, that was a fun game. Just watching RG3 come out, I was not expecting that. Even that first snap, I'm like, ooh, Let's see how this goes. And then he just started owning it immediately.
Yeah, set like we were saying. I think he completed 8 passes in a row before he had an incompletion, which is for a rookie quarterback. That's really saying something. Like, not to criticize Andy Luck, but he did a lot worse. But he was also playing the Chicago Bears, which I think he will. I think at the end of the season, they're going to be a lot closer than people think. RG3 and Andrew Luck, and I also think
I do
Russell
too.
Wilson will be up there with them. But I do think RG3 will have an advantage, probably like 20 points or something. But I don't think it'll be as huge of an advantage as people think. Like, you can tell that Andrew Luck is just, he hasn't quite figured it out as much. And also, if you watched RG3 in college, you will notice that the offense they're running there in Washington is, they've adjusted it a lot to be close to what he ran in college. So I think that's benefited him more than almost anything. And that's Shanahan. Shanahan did the same thing in Denver. He adjusted to make it easier for Elway to be the Elway he was.
And I think you need to do that. I think quarterbacks are they have their system, they're used to it, and I think taking a quarterback and making him come into a brand new system, I don't think is ever a recipe for success. I think you need to kind of at least adjust it a little bit towards the way that they play the game, just because that's what they've done for so long, that it's kind of hard to come in and learn an entirely new system and way of playing the game. So it's kind of nice that they did that.
Yeah. And then do you have any emails to go over or anything, Eric?
I went through my emails. I did get one today asking if I can't remember his name. I actually should find it. If he should drop Chris Johnson, and I replied back to him and told him no, but if he did, I wouldn't cry.
Yeah.
So hopefully he likes that email.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, I agree with you there. I would never cry over someone else's fantasy team either, but I do think that I would cry a lot over my own fantasy team if I had Chris Johnson on it, but I don't, so I feel lucky right now. But I agree with you. I wouldn't drop him just yet, because if you remember last year, I remember our friend Andy was trying his hardest to squeak into the playoffs with us, and he almost did, and that was because we all dropped Chris Johnson, and he picked him up, and Chris Johnson had like 3 games there where he actually did Chris Johnson work, which I'm hoping this year will be more than 3 or 4 games, but who knows? So
Yeah, I don't know.
I hope that answers your question, person who Eric doesn't remember his name. And then
I'll have to look it up.
I actually have a question here from Steve. Steve _420 at yahoo.com. And his question is, tonight I have Ray Rice going against the Cincinnati defense, and I also have Ronnie Brown, who is going to get a lot of the work since Ryan Matthews is out. I'm wondering if I should start Ronnie Brown over Ray Rice.
This is what I want. I want some of these type of fantasy questions, like the ones where I don't know if we'll ever choose the right answer, but
It's interesting because a lot of times you don't have 2 running backs
we are experts.
that are in the Monday night games. Especially, it works out a little bit better this week because there is 2 Monday night games. But I would answer this with no, you shouldn't bench Ray Rice. Like, Cincinnati, I do think will have a great defense by the end of the season. I think they have a great defense now, and I think they'll be a top 10 defense at the end of the season. But Ray Rice is a stud, and the rule of thumb that I go by is you never sit your studs. There's most people you're not able to get even 5 studs on your team. Like, you're going to maybe have a quarterback and a running back that's a stud, or a quarterback and a wide receiver that's a stud, or a running back and a tight end that's a stud. You play those guys. You take them. That's kind of what you build your fantasy team around. You take them with their good days, and you take them with their bad days. And that's really all you can do. And I don't think Ray Rice is going to be anything short of 90-plus yards and probably at least 1 touchdown tonight. So I think Cincinnati will do a good job of stopping him from getting anywhere over 100 yards. I don't think he's going to get 3 touchdowns, but I think he's going to do better than Ronnie Brown.
Yeah, you play Ray Rice. So I got another question here. So wide receiver, one slot left. Malcolm Floyd, Antoine Bolden, which I got the jersey, or Torrey Smith. What do you think?
I think it depends on where you're at. It's Monday night. If you're down 5 points, I put in Bolden. Bolden's, especially if you're in a PPR league, Bolden's going to get a few passes, and he can maybe make something happen with it. If they get in goal line area, Flacco likes him there. But if you're down 10 to 15 points or even higher than that, you got to go with either Malcolm Floyd against an Oakland defense that they make some big plays, but they also give up some big plays. So maybe he'll get you some stuff there. But I think the best option if you're down by more than 10 is Torrey Smith, because I think the Ravens are looking for him more and more every single game. Like he's a Julio Jones type. Like he's got the body, he's got a big build, and he can catch, and he's quick. So that's who bombs. I think. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's only a few minutes left, so you should hurry and take whatever you're at and listen to what Sean said. So yeah, I think we had 4 or 5 questions there. We got 2 minutes left before everything starts. Come on. We have a chat going on Justin TV. We also take emails, tweets, all that kind of stuff. And this is what we want to do. We'd actually like to make the live segment a little bit bigger. The main thing is we just need to get more well-known. So, but yeah, come on to our website, fantasytop5.com. It's spelled out F-I-V-E. We got everything on there, our schedule, the Monday games that we're going to do the show before. What else do we have on there? We have all of our contact information, so you can get on Twitter, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and my Twitter is at FTFSean.
And I'm at FTF Eric, and at Fantasy Top 5 is our main one. Any of those, tweet at us throughout the week. We'll get the podcast up later today. And, 4:59. We did it.
Yeah, so enjoy the Monday night games, party, and we will see you next week. I hope you all win your fantasy leagues. I know both I'm in 2 leagues.
I'm
both
against
of them
Sean
are
here.
still super, super close.
I'm against Sean in one. I'm a half a point ahead of him.
And I'm actually against our producer in the other one. So right now, I love these guys who are doing the podcast. As soon as I take off these headphones, I hate these two. So there it is. We love you guys. Tell a friend. Go to our website. We're going to be putting stuff up there all the time. All right. Peace out.
Peace.